Season 3 of WWE Unreal was released this past Tuesday, and like the first two seasons, it has 5 episodes. The first episode was titled The Why. It starts off with John Cena, who said he's never put more effort into a year as much as he did with his last year. The first match we see in highlights is the Logan Paul match, which took place at Clash in Paris last year. I believe that was one of John Cena's more underrated matches on his retirement tour. And then they go through the heel turn again, and Triple H practically admitted that it was a failure. He didn't say it in those words. And I did like how they basically had to admit that they retconned it on the SmackDown before SummerSlam last year. John Cena said he wanted to go for a shitty WrestleMania main event, and he certainly delivered on that. You have to give him that. But then Triple H was basically telling him that if you do that, the heat's not going to go on you. It's going to go on me and the creative team. He didn't say it's going to go on him. He said it'll go on the company. But we all know Triple H was smart enough to realize that he was going to get the heat for John Cena having bad matches. After that, we meet Braun Breaker fishing. That's how we met him first on this season. And he was, they go through his football career. He was actually pretty good in college football. He played at Middle Tennessee, and he was actually on the Baltimore Ravens training camp before he was cut. Then he went into wrestling. That's how most of these second and third generational guys get into wrestling. A lot of them have football careers, they don't make it, and then they get into wrestling because it was their backup. He was in Division, and then they go through Clash in Paris when he attacked Roman Reigns after his match with Bronson Reed. And then we go to CM Punk. We see Becky Lynch costing him the match against Seth Rollins at Clash in Paris, and then Becky would attack him the night after on Raw. And then we meet AJ Lee, and we go through how she first met CM Punk during her initial run with the company. And she talked about leaving in 2015. It's pretty obvious she left due to CM Punk and his legal issues with WWE. She was married to him at the time, but I did like seeing the highlights of her first run with the company. And she would finally return after 10 years in Chicago on SmackDown. And that's when she came back after Becky attacked Punk again. She made her big return, got a big pop, and we saw footage of her signing her contract. She claimed that she gets paid the same way her husband is. That's vague. I mean, I don't think she's getting the some amount of money. That'd be ridiculous, but it's probably something to do with guarantees. I don't know exactly what it is, but she is definitely getting paid more than she was during her first run, and she sent that tweet out to Stephanie practically out of frustration because of how the women were getting paid at that time. Anyways, that was still a great moment at last year, AJ Lee's return. What was not a great moment was WrestlePalooza, which is what we went to next, the worst PLE of 2025. This show sucked. Now, there was one thing I liked. There was a nice feature on Larry the Dog, Punk and AJ taking a photo with him, and he sadly passed on not too long after that. They showed the mixed tag team match. They pretended it was good. It was not. It was not a good match. And then they show Cena and Lesnar highlights. They admitted basically that the fans hated the match. He didn't say it sucked, but at least Cena, he acknowledged the fans didn't like it. And then after that, that's when it went to John Cena and AJ Styles in Australia at Crown Jewel, which was a great match. My favorite John Cena match on the retirement tour. And my favorite moment of the whole match was the homage to Bray Wyatt, and that led to the fans. Cena hit the Sister Abigail onto AJ, and then the fans had their fireflies out afterwards. And that was an awesome match. And that's when this episode went back to John Cena. And then they go to Seth Rollins and his injury on the show in the main event with Cody. And he immediately asked backstage after his injury what month it was because he was already thinking about WrestleMania. Episode 2 was titled The Last Time Is Now. This was the John Cena episode, but there were other topics as well, including Seth Rollins' injury and the aftermath from it. He had to vacate the World Heavyweight Championship, and they showed the Vision turning on him, which was obviously rushed. Then we go back to CM Punk, and he was wearing a really cool Michael Myers shirt that his wife AJ got him as a gift. And I guess he's a big horror movie fan. I also am. And then we see him winning the World Heavyweight Championship at Saturday night's main events back in November. After that, we go to Liv Morgan. The first time we meet her on this season was on her ranch, and she was actually attacked by a hornet on camera, which was funny. And we see footage of her WWE tryouts. I remember her. She was very young when she first came in back in 2015, and she still has the tattoo on her neck. AJ Lee has a similar tattoo as well when she first won the Divas Championship. But Liv Morgan's tattoo refers to her debut on the main roster. It's 11/21/17. And it's also shared. The other two girls from the Riot Squad, Ruby Riot and Sarah Logan, have the same tattoo as well. They all got it when they debuted together. And they show her injury last year, Liv's, and the footage from it. They also show her shoulder being popped in, which was pretty gruesome, to be honest. That looks very painful. And I remember Liv's injury against Kairi Sane last year. To be honest, that was probably the best thing that happened to her in her career, because it led to her being off for a few months. And then when she came back at Survivor Series, she had a lot of momentum after she cost John Cena the title. It was a good return. And she carried that momentum over into winning the Royal Rumble and then winning the Women's World title at WrestleMania. So that injury was benefiting her a lot. And it worked out for her. And, so much of wrestling now is just about timing. And had Liv not gotten hurt, it's possible she wouldn't have gotten the spot she did this year by winning the Rumble and winning the women's title at WrestleMania. But she also talked about missing Evolution last year, which was disappointing. She also missed SummerSlam, and they show footage of her returning at Survivor Series. John Cena was very giving in that match. He allowed Raquel Rodriguez and Roxanne Perez to hit their finishers on him, and then they recreated the heel turn with Liv Morgan coming back. It looked like she turned on Dom, and I guess it was a face turn, but then she does the John Cena heel turn where he's smiling, then he has like the angry face, and she hits him with a low blow like what Cena did to Cody at the Elimination Chamber last year. And then that leads to Dom winning the Intercontinental Championship back from John Cena. And Triple H really put Liv Morgan over. He said that Liv has the potential to be one of the biggest female stars ever. So then we go back to John Cena. And as I said, this is his episode, his retirement. And we go to his last match at Saturday night's main event last December in Washington. And Cena wanted to showcase NXT talent on the show, and he wanted to actually tap out in his last match, which he did, and fans are not happy about it. So CM Punk, they show a lot of wrestlers there, but Punk he was featured. He told the story of John Cena and Batista putting their world titles on Hulk Hogan back in 2005, and that's how he got the idea for him and Cody to put their world titles on John Cena. And they actually show Punk watching Cena's last match in the crowd with Bayley, and Bayley did get some screen time as well on this season, even though she's probably not going to be with the company very much longer. And then they show us John Cena and Gunther, the highlights from the match. Cena really praised Gunther, and it's weird when he says he gave up, it's like he was letting go. He compared it to being surrounded by your family when you die, and it's kind of a morbid thing to say, but he sees it as, it's over now, he's fought, and it's okay just to let go now because the journey has ended. and they show him tapping out, the fans being devastated, tears in the crowd. They show Michael Cole crying when John Cena, he walks past and he retires, and John Cena, of course, takes his final bow. Thank you, Cena. I said that numerous times during that Saturday Night's Main Event review, but again, thank you, Cena. Uh, that was that. I'll say this: I was disappointed we didn't see things backstage because it was said to be very emotional. Everyone saying goodbye. They didn't really show us much. It just show him walking away with his wife, and um, I remember Mark Henry talking about it on Busted Open, saying that everyone was so emotional backstage, and we didn't see much footage of that. They did show the fans being angry at Triple H after when they did the post show. The fans were saying a whole bunch of shit to him, chanting stuff at him, and I don't know. I guess you can be mad at him, but ultimately, Cena wanted to tap out. He thought he was doing the best thing, but fans, of course, had the right to be upset about it. I just think the retirement tour was really disappointing because of the heel turn, and fans were just looking for a nice moment to send Cena off on and to at least, have something to hang their hat on. It was disappointing, but at least we get to end on a high note. I think that's what the fans wanted, and unfortunately, they didn't get it. I think a lot of the boos were also not just for that night, but also for how the entire retirement tour was booked. Anyways, then we go to episode 3, which was titled Rise and Rumble. Braun Breaker was actually considered at one time to win the Rumble. They didn't say that they made it their plan, but he was being considered. Triple H was afraid to do it. He said it would be perceived that he's being shoved down our throats. When I heard Triple H say that, I just thought to myself, wow, this company is still traumatized from Roman Reigns at that Royal Rumble in Philadelphia. 11 years ago when the fans turned on him. They thought he was being shoved down their throats. Then we see Liv Morgan and her recovery from her injury. And then we go to Seth Rollins, who said he hasn't properly made events at a WrestleMania, which is ridiculous to say. He has 3 WrestleMania main events, technically. The cash in at 31, then night 1 at WrestleMania 40, and then night 2 at night 1 at WrestleMania 41. So for him to say he hasn't properly made events at a WrestleMania, no, he has. Then they show us they went through his surgery, and they show Becky Lynch there watching it, and she was grossed out as everyone else should be. WWE has this tendency to just show us surgeries. Why? Why do you need to show us someone getting cut open? We know what happens in surgery. And then we go back to Survivor Series. That's when they show the War Games match with the men. Braun Breaker landing on the back of his neck. And that Survivor Series sucked, by the way. Then we go to Obafemi. He gets a feature. And then we go to Trick Williams and Lash Legend. They were actually talking to an elephant. And it's funny because this had to be done. They had to put this in just to fill content. They show us an elephant pissing. Okay. This season really went downhill. Like the last 3 episodes, I didn't like that much. I liked the first 2, but like episode 3 in particular really sucked, and it was elephant piss. I'm gonna save that. When there's bad WWE shows, I'm gonna say it stunk like elephant piss. Why did they need to show us this? I don't get it. And then we go to Oba again, and he tells the story of being a big fan growing up. And I'll be honest, this was just not a very interesting documentary at this point. Not a lot happened that was interesting. Like there's nothing riveting. There was no controversy like there was in the first 2 seasons. You remember, I think it was the second season when they showed this Michael Hayes saying that Chelsea Green is now can get past a certain level, and that stirred controversy. Like there's nothing on this show like that. This season was so much more tame than the first 2. And there was a lot less with the creative team, it felt like, compared to the first 2 seasons. Here, it's just like, it was brief. I mean, it's basically a glorified WWE 24 episode with just a bigger production budget and more time. That's all this really was. And I think this would have just been a lot more interesting, Unreal, if it was produced 2 years ago when like The Rock was coming back. I think people would have been more interested in that. And I think that probably led to Unreal being created because so many people were, talking about the backstage process at that time. I did mention Chelsea Green, and she gets some screen time here on this season as well. We meet her at her new home in Florida, and we meet her husband, Matt Cardona, and they revealed that Cody and Brandy set them up actually, and we saw Matt's incredible wrestling collection. He's a major collectible. He loves his toys, and they show footage of him proposing to her. Now we're finally at the Royal Rumble. We focus on Liv Morgan, Chelsea Green, and Lash Legend for the Women's Rumble. Liv wins that Rumble. And then we go through the Men's Rumble, and that particularly remember not being good at all. I forgot Brock Lesnar eliminated Obafemi in that match. Why don't they ever reference that on TV anymore? That's weird. But they didn't show the infamous yeet botch when Jey Uso was yeeting and Brock Lesnar got eliminated during the fucking yeet. Oh, I went on a crazy rant on that. And I didn't like this episode at all. I remember like there's nothing into it. It's just it's just showing wrestlers and their stories and their journey going into a PLE. That's fine. It's just what made this show interesting, at least in the first 2 seasons, was the creative process. That's the whole point of Unreal. Now there's nothing really to it. It's just, again, it's a glorified 24 episode. And there really isn't much of a reason for this show to exist anymore. Episode 4 was titled Life Happens, which referred to CM Punk and AJ Lee grieving the loss of Larry, their dog. This is how the episode opened up, and this was easily the saddest part of the entire season. Then we go to Stephanie Vaquer. She's highlighted here, and of course, they feature the Devil's Kiss. She talks a lot about her career and her journey to WWE. We see her winning the Women's World Championship at WrestlePalooza. She celebrates with her dad, who was emotional. And Stephanie herself was, of course, very emotional. I just thought she came off as very likable here. Next, we go to Braun Breaker and his unfortunate injury that happened the night after the Royal Rumble. And then Bronson Reed would get hurt soon afterwards. And Bronson actually says the Vision are a cursed group. They are. So next, we go to Elimination Chamber. And I just wanted to mention this. They swear a lot on this show, particularly Triple H. He's a swearing machine. He always drops F-bombs, it seems like, on every sentence. And it's just kind of strange because you're not allowed to swear on WWE TV. I'm sure Netflix would censor it, but on this show it's okay for some reason. So now we're with Rhea Ripley, and we go through the Women's Elimination Chamber. Of course, they started with Rhea because she was going to win. And Tiffany almost broke her nose in this match. I actually forgot about that. Rhea gave her a reverse electric chair, and man, Tiffany, she's lucky she wasn't hurt worse. I mean, she didn't get to be on WrestleMania anyway, so maybe it wasn't that bad, but this could have been a bad injury here. And then after that, of course, Rhea Ripley wins. She goes to WrestleMania. Then we go to Becky Lynch against AJ Lee. AJ wins in Chicago, her new place where she resides. Of course, her husband's hometown. Speaking of CM Punk, we went through his match with Finn Balor. They didn't show us the great Michael Jordan entrance he did on that show. That was like the best thing on that show because nothing else Elimination Chamber was good. And they show Punk and AJ celebrating as champions together for the night. And then they go through the men's chamber. Seth, of course, made his return by attacking the Vision, only to face Gunther at WrestleMania. That made sense, right? Anyways, Randy, of course, wins the Elimination Chamber. I don't want to talk about that feud ever again, him and Cody, but Randy Orton won by last eliminating Cody Rhodes after Drew McIntyre interfered. And I still think, without question, Elimination Chamber was the worst PLE so far of 2026. It was a bad show. Finally, we get to episode 5, titled The Grandest Stage. Of course, referring to WrestleMania, the grandest stage of them all. This episode started off with Cody Rhodes at the WWE warehouse, which is kind of cool. This was shown a lot in the teasers, him looking through historic robes, and they showed one of his father's attire, and they showed one of Cody's robes, which was pretty cool. And all I thought was, they have all this great memorabilia, all this history, this great gear that's so memorable. They need a physical Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous that they don't. That would all look great in a physical Hall of Fame. So then they talk about Cody and Randy's history. So far, no mention of Pat McAfee. Then we go to Liv Morgan, and they show her with just that awful bruise on her forehead. I just felt so bad for both Liv and Roxanne after that. Stephanie, I'm sure, felt awful about it. She's like pushed Liv, and then Liv and Roxanne's head just it's like it makes a sickening thud, seeing their heads just bounce off of each other. Liv, we knew, was badly hurt. I was worried also about Roxanne because the way she was lying there. I mean, we knew Liv was moving; she was okay. It looked like Roxanne was like knocked the fuck out. It was scary. And then we see Liv going to the stadium with Raquel Rodriguez, and then they rehearse her entrance. A lot of the girls liked it. Lyra Valkyria, I think, got emotional watching it. Bailey was watching it too. And then we go, see multiple wrestlers who are performing on that show in the stadium. Stephanie Vaquer, Seth Rollins, Braun Breaker, CM Punk, and AJ Lee. Then we focus on AJ Lee rehearsing her entrance, which was a remake of the John Cena entrance at WrestleMania 25. Instead of miniature, instead of a whole bunch of John Cena's, you have a whole bunch of AJ Lee's. Young girls all dressed up like AJ, which was a cool entrance. And then they go through AJ against Becky, their rematch from Elimination Chamber, and AJ had dominated Becky for months. She tapped her out at WrestlePalooza, tapped her out at Survivor Series, and then tapped her out to win the Women's Intercontinental Championship at Elimination Chamber. So Becky needed her win back, which she got. AJ did say she isn't done yet. Then we go through Seth Rollins against Gunther. This was all built around Braun Breaker's return. He gives Seth Rollins a super spear after the match. Gunther got like no time here. They didn't go talk about him because the match with Seth just happened at the last minute. I think it was going to be Seth and Braun, but because of Braun's injury, I think he was cleared before WrestleMania, by the way, but because of his injury, they went with Gunther. Maybe because they didn't have anything for Gunther. I think it was supposed to be Gunther and Ray, but that also fell through, unfortunately. But the whole thing here was just Gunther, spearing Seth. Braun Breaker spearing Seth after the match. Then Liv Morgan performed her entrance live, the Trouble Trouble music video, which looked great. It's still easily, without question, the hottest entrance ever. Definitely the hottest WrestleMania entrance, but the hottest entrance in general. So we go through Liv Morgan against Stephanie Vaquer, Liv winning the Women's World Championship from Stephanie, and Liv was emotional after her win. Stephanie was injured, and she practically admitted it here. That match was awful, though. Like, that was probably one of the worst matches at WrestleMania. They got no time. It was so unfortunate. And I think Liv was almost telling Triple H that, we saved you some time. I'm not sure what was the context behind that, but that would have been disappointing if they had to get their time cut. I think it was a short match because of Liv's injury, getting that bruise on her head. I don't know if she was concussed, but I think she was. And then also Stephanie Vaquer's injury. She hasn't been on TV since a couple weeks after WrestleMania. She hasn't wrestled since WrestleMania. So I think probably more to do with Stephanie's injury. It was definitely more serious than we thought. And then Triple H, he talks about Pat McAfee as if it was his decision to bring him in for the main title program for night one, which was bullshit. We all know it was a TKO decision, but of course he's falling on the sword. He likes his paycheck, I assume, he gets from TKO. So he's just falling on the sword for them. But they go through Cody and Randy. The match sucked. It was a lot worse looking back on it than I remember watching it for the first time. It was a bad main event. They checked on Cody's orbital injury after he won the match. He was a mess, man. He was bleeding everywhere, and his blonde hair, the blood like soaked his hair, dyeing it all red. And like that orbital injury was just disgusting to look at. So after that, we get to night two. We start off with CM Punk, him talking about the main event. He was emotional. Then we're with Trick Williams. And there was a cool moment with John Cena giving both Trick and Obafemi advice before their first WrestleManias. And then we see Triple H giving Obafemi some advice alone. And then we go through Obafemi against Brock Lesnar in the opening match. They make no reference of Brock's fake retirement, which is a good thing because I'm convinced Brock just did that as a negotiation ploy to get more money. He wanted a better contract, so he just said, "Oh, I'm going to retire, but now you need me to sell tickets for SummerSlam," which he didn't do, by the way. I think that's what that was all about. I don't think for a second he was actually planning on retire. I just think he wanted more money, and this was his way of negotiating it. Then we see Trick Williams and Lil Yachty talking backstage. We go through Trick Williams against Sami Zayn, with Trick winning the United States Championship. And then we see Rhea wishing CM Punk luck backstage. They didn't focus on Rhea and Jade, unfortunately, because that was a much better match than any of the other women's matches on the entire weekend. That was easily the best women's match. So we go through CM Punk against Roman Reigns. I still think the steel step spot was absolutely moronic. It was so dumb. I mean, it's okay if the referee takes a bump, but I mean, he has him hanging upside down and he's bashing his head in with steel steps. That should be a disqualification. I hated that spot because it made the referee look like a total idiot, just a jackass. It'd be fine if the ref just took a bump. Why couldn't they just have a referee bump? I just don't like that spot still. Anyway, still a great match. Night 2 was much better than Night 1 for WrestleMania this year. That's obvious. And looking at Unreal Season 3, I think this was the worst season. This was the least noteworthy of things being said. No controversy at all. Very little to do with the creative. Which just, again, this was a glorified 24 episode with a. Anyway, I don't want to say glorified. I think 24 episodes were actually better than this season. There's many I can look at, but it's WWE 24 with a bigger budget on Netflix, and that's all it really is now. It's not even this whole thing of them taking us behind the curtain. The novelty of that weared off on the first season, and it's been much reduced in these last 2 seasons, especially the third one. The second one had some creative, but here the creative seemed to be at a minimal. It was really focused on just these wrestlers and their journey to WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble and things like that. And of course, Cena's retirement, which is fine, but it's just like a 24 episode. That's what it felt like for this whole season. A bunch of 24 episodes on a bunch of different names. And to be honest, I think Unreal is no longer interesting. I'm really not that interested in season 4. I'll watch it and review it, but it wouldn't shock me if there is no season 4 because the viewership went down from season 1 to season 2, and I think it'll probably go down even more for season 3. So we'll see. But it's an uninteresting show now. It's just for wrestling fans. I think if you're not a fan, like there's no reason to watch this. I think you might be interested in the creative process, seeing how the sausage is made for the first season, but that's over now because they don't even focus much on creative anymore. And that was what's going to sell the show. People wanted to see the creative process. Now, as I said, it's just a WWE 24 episode. And I think season 3 of Unreal was the worst one yet. And I'm not counting on there being a season 4 of WWE Unreal.